Hi guys, it's me, Joel Jumpman. You might be wondering, Joel, what are you doing outside? Well, after an unfortunate misunderstanding, I decided music wasn't for me. So, I'm trying a new hobby. I call it being homeless. I mean, there's a list of reasons the arrangement wasn't working. I can't hold a tune, I'm only so-so on guitar, I broke the agreement by burning down the house, I'm awful on piano. But I think my new hobby will work out great. Time to try it out. Well, this isn't working out so far. I think it's time to find a new hobby. In the meantime though, I probably should get someone to take my place. But what to do instead? I lost almost everything, and it's not like I could go join the circus or something. I still have standards. I guess I just gotta think on it. I'm sure eventually something will hit me.
Hey, some of my stuff survived the fire.
There's gotta be something in here to cure my boredom. No. Nope. Well, that's not gonna help. Ah, heck yes!
Video games. Because how else am I supposed to make friends? Go outside? Seriously though, video games have always been high on the list of how I want to spend my free time. Maybe too high, but there's always been something magical about clicking buttons to control the character on screen. Maybe it's because it can fulfill our childhood dreams. Who hasn't wanted to become a wizard casting spells, an armored knight brandishing a sword, or wanted to ride a dinosaur, or become a bird and dog beating up an anthropomorphic fox? Oh Nintendo, how did you know? There are just some things that we'll never be able to do in real life. You can't cast spells, or see a dinosaur wear clothes, or fight monsters. But since video games are an interactive experience, they can cross that gap. You control what happens in video games. You're the one who's saving the world and experiencing the story. So video games can create those special moments, some kind of magic that books and movies can't quite capture. Now you can throw fish at people without the prison sentence. But to really understand video games, let's look at a bit of background. The world's most famous video game was created by a famous programmer who you have probably heard of. Yup, that's right, God. His first video game was one of those boring life simulator games. Pretty cool technically, especially with a development cycle of only a week, but I've never really been into the genre. But as a result of a bug, it eventually got turned into a choose-your-own-adventure type game. Yada yada, you know the rest. People kept choosing the bad ending, God had a self-insert character, Deus Ex Machina, etc, etc. But, since humans love copying things, in the 1970s, we finally started to get video games of our own. The first interesting game made by human programmers was a little something called Pong. Truly revolutionary. And that was followed by Pong, but it looks like sports. And Pong, but it's one player. And Pong, but you're blasting aliens. People in the 70s just really liked Pong. But one of the biggest influences in early video games was a certain plumber who came along and helped things look a little bit less like Pong. Though if you think about it, this is just Pong, but you move to the right. But since only old fogies played those games, let's fast forward and see what real gamers played. It's the mid-2000s. People think the Da Vinci Code is good. Pluto is still a planet. And Blockbuster is apparently a thing. In that time, you'll find a young Joel Jumpman whose only idea of video games was the V-Smile TV learning system.
Video games aren't for saving princesses, they're for learning math!
While it was mostly learning math, spelling, or colors, there was enough basic platforming that my toddler self was hoodwinked into believing it was fun.
It wasn't until one fateful Christmas morning that something magical happened. My sister got a Game Boy Advance.
Now, I was pretty young at this point, only about 4 or 5, so it makes sense that I didn't get any kind of gaming system. But my time would come soon enough. In the meantime, whenever I got a chance to borrow her Game Boy, you bet I was playing Winnie the Pooh adventures. Soon, I myself acquired such classic Game Boy games, such as Larry Boy and Hot Wheels All Out, though I had to play them on her Game Boy. But the first chance I had to really experience the magic of video games for myself was another Christmas morning, just a few years later, because it was then that I scored a Nintendo DS. More screens, more buttons, more games! Move over, Game Boy, there's a new king of gaming in this house. My sister wasn't too happy that I now had the superior system, but the big deal were the new games. Because now, I could experience true video game magic through games that weren't just the licensed kid games. For I had finally acquired a real video game, the greatest game of all time. Go Diego Go for the Nintendo DS. Though Super Mario 64 DS is a close second. Now, as a superior port of Super Mario 64, 64 DS is still my favorite game of all time. I played it so much as a kid because it was my first experience with something that can really be described as a gamer's game. Something that wasn't made as a distraction for kids, but as an experience. You have actual 3D cutscenes, and then you're off to playing as Yoshi, a dinosaur with shoes. Lakitu informs you that you need to go save Mario and the princess. You have an amazing flutter, and you can eat bunnies and bombs, and you start gaining stars to unlock the secrets of the castle. And then you save Mario and fight Bowser, then finally unlock Luigi. And always keep playing as Luigi because he has the cool backflip. Wario was there. What an introduction to gaming that was. I got to experience a remake of what many call the greatest game of all time. I had those 3D worlds to run around in, with so many levels, with so many stars to get. And I had multiple characters to play as, and multitudes of minigames. I mean, there's a reason this was the launch title for the DS. And when I finally got all 150 stars and unlocked the cannon outside, that was pure bliss. And once I figured out I could delete my save and experience the game all over again, you could bet that I did. Nowadays, I can understand some of the criticism of the game, like the controls and the low quality graphics of the DS, but as my first experience with 3D worlds, the D-pad was good enough for me. Of course, my opinion doesn't matter because I've never played the original.
As a homeschool kid who didn't get out much, this was the way to explore vast new worlds.
64 DS made me realize the joys and inherent magic of gaming. And it made me want to play more games, especially games that were meant to be experiences, that were themselves meant to be art. Scribblenauts and Super Scribblenauts, for example, were a blast, creating whatever I could think of, and then adding crazy adjectives to them. And LEGO Battles was a fun introduction to real-time strategy games. I never said I got past the intro, but the games I spent the most time with were Mario Kart DS and New Super Mario Bros. I remember how I always hung out with my cousin and competed in rounds upon rounds of Mario vs. Luigi and Balloon Battle, and how I always definitely won every single time, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Eventually, all three of my siblings had DS's, so multiplayer on those games and many others were some of my favorite ways to spend time with each other and have fun. The single-player campaign of New Super Mario Bros. Was awesome too, saving Peach from Bowser Jr., going through many different worlds, fighting new and creative bosses, dying over and over again because I wanted to unlock the secret worlds but I couldn't beat the bosses as Mini Mario. Sadly, I lost my old copy of New Super Mario Bros. Years ago on a car ride, so for a while, there's just no way for me to play it. So, if you ever find a copy in a used red minivan, please let it know that its family hasn't given up on it. The DS was great, and as my first system that was made for gaming, I loved it. There's so much creativity to be found in dual screens, the touchscreen, wireless multiplayer, and everything else that the DS had.
But small screens can only do so much. If I'm curing boredom, I need something bigger, something better, something made for gamers.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. The Wii, Nintendo's casual revolution. With its easy to understand, intuitive controls, every family, office, and senior living home needed one. Everyone from little babies to your old grandma Beatrice enjoyed Wii Sports. After all, it wasn't hard to understand that swinging the controls was like swinging a tennis racket or a baseball bat. It was easy to play and fun for everyone, even those who weren't used to video games. And those of us who liked video games enjoyed it too. With boxing, I could punch my brother without getting in trouble. And you wouldn't believe how intense bowling matches were between me and Grandpa. However, if I had the choice, I preferred Mario games. They'd become much more my speed. And on that front, the Wii certainly delivered. Mario Kart Wii was everything I needed in a sequel to DS. Bigger tracks, a bigger screen, better carts and characters, and split-screen multiplayer. I'll always treasure absolutely trouncing my dad every single time because I knew the locations of all the shortcuts. And all the unlockables were pretty cool too, though it was way too hard to unlock everything and I just could not win the lightning-covered mirror mode. New Super Mario Bros. Wii was amazing as a sequel to New Super Mario Bros., especially with the 4-player co-op. It was so cool to unlock hidden paths and levels, fight Bowser and the Koopalings, and the best part, throwing everyone else off the edge. My siblings and I played that game to death, 100%ing it multiple times and tried to speedrun it as fast as possible. I never said we were good, but the Wii also had something else, something new, a 3D Mario adventure, Super Mario Galaxy. Finally, something that worked as a sequel to 64 DS for me to play. And by play, I mean get stuck on the first level.
Now to be fair, I was like 8 or something at the time, but I don't want that on my resume.
I had to get my gamer of a cousin to teach me how exactly I was supposed to attack his tail. but once I learned, you can bet I played through every level of Galaxy and Galaxy 2 as fast as I could, and I enjoyed every second of it. Having planets I could walk around, epic boss fights, and over 300 stars combined for me to discover and collect. That truly made the Galaxy games some of my favorites of all time, though 64DS is still at the top of my list. Probably because of Galaxy's lack of such an exciting hub world like Peach's Castle with all of its secrets, Galaxy's emphasis on more linear paths, and my greater nostalgia for the DS. But the DS and the Wii had the video games that defined my childhood. I grew up blowing on the cartridges, learning 10 years later that blowing on them might actually make it worse. Using the Wii wheel, learning that doesn't do anything either. Dealing with the fact that my whole life has been a lie. Nintendo gets criticized for directing the Wii to a more casual audience. The Wii hardware was a generation behind its competitors. Gamers were left behind, while Nintendo made games for the lowest common denominator, which sometimes made it feel like they were dumbing down the games.
But while I can understand the criticism, the Wii drew in family with kids like me. Kids who would eventually go on to buy Nintendo consoles 5-10 years down the line.
Even kids could recognize that the games made by Nintendo were consistently good. They were always fun, and I enjoyed almost every official Nintendo game that I got. Because of the Wii and its games, I declared myself a Nintendo fan from that point onward. I just have really bad timing. The Wii U, Nintendo's Hindenburg. Launching in late 2012, the Wii U was made as a follow-up to the Wii to try to capitalize off the former's success. I did say try. With the marketing focus being on the Wii U gamepad, a lot of people just thought it was another accessory for the Wii, and it got nowhere near the fad the Wii was. My family had gotten DS's and a Wii, but now my parents weren't all that interested in buying this new console, so I wasn't getting a Wii U unless I got it myself. And by myself, I mean with my siblings' help. I had to get the rest of my siblings to contribute, but we saved enough money to buy the Wii U.
You're welcome, Nintendo.
Despite its reputation as one of the worst Nintendo consoles, I love the Wii U. New Super Mario Bros. U was one of the early games we got, and while I can understand the complaints about the oversaturation of the series, I still loved Mario, and this new game was still an improvement over everything I remembered from the Wii. There were more hidden paths and levels to unlock, but this time on a world map. Fighting Bowser and the Koopalings wasn't as original, but the fights were different enough to keep it fresh enough for me, and throwing everyone else off the edge was still an important feature. But now, a fifth player could absolutely destroy everyone else's lives by using the gamepad. Nintendo Land was another early game, and it was always a blast, especially when friends were over. I especially loved trying to beat the co-op ones, but it was always fun seeing all these games based off Nintendo properties that I didn't really know too much about, like Pikmin or Animal Crossing and Metroid. But one of the best multiplayer games for the system was Super Smash Bros. I didn't know much about the series, but my church always had it set up for middle school and high school events, so I played it a lot. I mostly button mashed at first, but the chaos of 8 people with crazy characters and crazy stages with crazy items made it so much fun. I eventually got the game myself, and I was able to beat friends at home too, though I know saying that I played with items has made you lose all respect for me. But what we couldn't wait for on the Wii U was a new 3D Mario game. Maybe it was going to be Galaxy 3, or something like Super Mario Universe to get that U in there. Whatever it was, the first 3D Mario game for the Wii U was going to blow all expectations out of the water. Sinking to the bottom of the ocean does technically count. Super Mario 3D World. It was a 3D Mario game. I mean, it says it right there. But it felt more like a disappointment. Don't get me wrong, I loved playing it. A 3D game like New Super Mario Bros. Was amazing. You could even throw people off ledges. But its linear level design left a lot to be desired. I mean, sure, the Galaxy games were linear, but they didn't have that same feel of just going straight to the end and on to the next level. There were multiple missions in most Galaxies. Here, it's just get to the flagpole and move on. There doesn't seem to be as much magic in that. But there's still magic to be had in it. 3D World thrives as a mess of multiplayer mayhem, journeying through levels that have been crafted to perfection, trying to collect all the stars and stamps and fighting each other for the crown. I think 3D World perfectly describes Nintendo's problem with the Wii U. They made something that feels good and fun, but without understanding how to market it or what people wanted. The Wii U gamepad was new and crazy fun when it was utilized properly, but Nintendo made it feel like just another Wii accessory at a time when people were getting tired of those. Super Mario 3D World was a crazy fun multiplayer Mario game, but it felt like just another new Super Mario Bros. Game at a time when people were getting tired of those. People wanted something that felt magical and new. The Wii U failed because Nintendo failed its marketing and it failed its fans, and before they could figure it all out, it was too late. Only die-hard Nintendo fans were willing to buy it. If only a die-hard Nintendo fan would drive by soon. Regardless of its failure, the Wii U did succeed in one place. It kept me as a full-on Nintendo fan. Despite many flaws this generation, there was still magic in many of their games, and many of those games made me a fan of more than just Mario. I became interested in the rich history of Nintendo games. Maining Link in Super Smash Bros. Led me to Hyrule Warriors, and eventually Breath of the Wild. Metroid Blast in Nintendo Land was what made me eventually buy Metroid Dread. Imagine how many others were just like me. I mean, less than 13 million for sure. But my 5 years of being a Nintendo fan was finally about to pay off with the release of their new console, the Nintendo Switch. Releasing in early March 2017, this was Nintendo's golden ticket. Working as a hybrid system of both a home and portable console, it created a best of both worlds for Nintendo. Their portable consoles had always done better, and with both consoles combined, more games could be created for just the one system. And because Nintendo wanted to do something nice for my birthday, I was able to get my hands on a Switch on launch day and play these new games. I mean game. The Switch launched with Breath of the Wild and very little else. But Breath of the Wild was certainly a big enough game to fill up the time. While I had messed around with various Zelda games before this point, I never actually got very far. Breath of the Wild was the first Zelda game that really drew me in and actually got me to finish it. The openness of Breath of the Wild gives you the ability to do whatever you want and explore a vast open world. You could make your own choices and go wherever you wanted, even straight to the final boss. I played it so much. Exploring from the Great Plateau to Zora's Domain to Death Mountain and Gerudo Desert. There's so many secrets to find and enemies to fight, and it filled me with wonder. Though eventually there were plenty of other games on the Switch for me to play, like Mario plus Rabbids or Hyrule Warriors. But during the Switch reveal, we got a hint of a new 3D Mario. It was only 5 seconds or so, but it gave us hope that this new Mario game would be more open world, a la Super Mario 64. In the January reveal trailer, our hopes were all but confirmed when we got shown amazing and creative worlds with Mario running all around in Super Mario Odyssey. But what I remember most clearly is the E3 2017 trailer. I was at a CIY conference, and during a break, I was watching the E3 livestream, when suddenly, Nintendo gave us what we always wanted, a dinosaur with a hat! You could become a dinosaur, a Goomba, a Hammer Blow, a frog, a random guy! And those crazy worlds and costumes, a jump-up superstar playing, a Mario song. Me and my friends were amazed, and we couldn't wait for it to come out. Finally, in October it came. Super Mario Odyssey! I remember being amazed at the epic opening scene with Bowser and Mario in a grand fight, seeing normal things like frogs with hats, enjoying the subtle Mario humor. Running around and jumping felt amazing. Jumping off canopy was great. Possessing old and new Mario enemies. There were so many different types of objectives to complete, and so much fun to be had with costumes and stickers and kingdoms to explore, and it took me a while, but once I figured out how to bounce off cat flows, so many more movement possibilities opened up. It's just too bad you can't do that in real life. And I've always been a completionist, so having 880 moves to collect made it so much fun, and all those kingdoms made it feel magical, and it helped me keep enjoying Odyssey for a long time.
But in the meantime, I started to expand my horizons.
I'd never really been into any console wars, probably because Nintendo was losing them, but I was a Nintendo fan through and through, and I didn't play much else besides Minecraft. But I heard good things, or I got good deals, so I started playing non-Nintendo games, like Civilization, Hitman, and the Arkham games. I got a PS4, and I had fun really feeling like Spiderman. And Jedi Fallen Order is fun, as long as you do it deathless. Nintendo didn't have a monopoly on good games. There wasn't as big of a difference between consoles as I thought, except for how generous they are.
But as I played more and more games, I started to feel that something was missing. Just what was the point of video games? Are they just an escape from reality? Just a hobby for when you get bored of being homeless?
The obvious first answer is that they're for entertainment. Video games, movies, books, TV shows, they're all just made to entertain us like the couch potatoes we are, and that's it. But that doesn't seem like the full picture.
As I become older and growing more and more spiritually mature, I believe more and more that everything I do should glorify God. But how can I play video games while honoring God?
My first solution was to say that maybe multiplayer games were with it, because then I grow in my relationship with others. After all, it was playing Mario Kart DS with my cousin, Wii with my family, and 8 Deluxe, and Smash Brothers with my friends that made us grow closer together. Relationships are a good thing, because it's not good for man to be alone. And this line of thought would make sense of why I started questioning the point of video games now. My siblings didn't play many games with me on the Switch. My brother became a fan of Fortnite, and my sisters weren't that interested in video games anymore. It probably didn't help that I always completely destroyed them in every Mario Kart, Mario Party, or Smash Bros. Game we played.
But if only multiplayer games are worth it, that still doesn't explain single-player games. Something is still missing. So I decided to turn to what Christians said.
Shocking, I know. You think Christians would be more sticks in the mud, talk about those darn kids with their darn video games. But Christians did invent most of the arts, and they have much to say even about the more modern ones. When you look at movie or game reviews from Christians, they don't focus on how entertaining it is. Sure, they'll mention if it's like watching paint dry, but the primary focus is on content and what that content means. Avengers is not just an entertaining movie, it's about how a team of flawed people work together to fight for mankind's God-given freedoms. Zelda is not just a fun game, but it's about having courage to face evil when an entire realm is in danger. If video games were a waste of time, then so were movies and books and other types of art. After all, the main difference between a movie and a video game is interactivity, and the main difference between movies and books is that you don't have to imagine the action in your head. Watching action movies and reading fantasy books are things that Christians have done for a long time. They've even written and directed some of the best. Christians have always said that art is worth something in itself, because it speaks to something true. Superhero movies speak for the need for heroes who always do what is right. The Lord of the Rings show that the world can be saved through the actions of the smallest person. The Good Samaritan shows that we should help others. Jesus used stories to tell about something true. Movies, books, and video games can do the same thing. The story of Mario is about being a hero who does what is right by saving the princess. And the gameplay has you controlling Mario and being that hero, while making sure that it's fun. Portal speaks to human ingenuity, both in gameplay by having you solve puzzles with your own ingenuity, but also in the story of Chell, who uses her ingenuity to overcome the machine. The Civilization series is about bringing, you'll never believe it, civilization to an empty and chaotic world. Minecraft is about creativity and imagination. Pokemon is about being the very best like no one ever was. Breath of the Wild is about having the courage to face evil, even in the face of a desolate world. Murder Simulator 3000 is about... Actually, I don't know about that one. But the point is that humans create art that reflects them in some way, and God created human beings to reflect Him. Art points to things that are true because God is true. All these series and games have something in them that reflect God. Video games can show beauty in their art style. Their story can showcase human character and emotions. Puzzles can show human resourcefulness and intelligence, or human willingness to overcome challenges. And games can even represent abstract ideas like free will, determinism, and choice, or the difference between right and wrong. Now, that isn't to say that all video games are good. There are some bad games. Not just those, there are also some with unnecessary violence that I just don't want to play, and there are some games that promote concepts that aren't good. They're sexually explicit, or promote bad ideas. Now perhaps those games are designed well. Good design is a good thing. Games that aren't designed well, they wouldn't really reflect the design of the universe very well, now would they? But there is evil in the world, and it is possible for video games to call evil good and good evil. But the existence of these bad video games, despite what the old folks at church say, doesn't preclude the existence of good ones.
Video games are not a waste of time. Neither are they just entertainment. They show something true, though you do have to be careful not to conflate something which reflects truth with truth himself.
I swear, it just came out of the fire like this. That magic I felt in 3D Mario's open worlds was a reflection of a real world that is beautiful and complex. The platforming fun I had in New Super Mario Bros. Is a reflection of future joy. The wonder I felt in Breath of the Wild is a reflection of true wonder to be found in the created world. Murdering people in Hitman is a reflection of me being imperfect and needing therapy or something. But video games show something true, and truth is eternal. It will still matter in the end.
Video games are such a unique medium of art. Each player has a unique playstyle and a unique experience. There's some great potential there for showing truth. If only more people would take advantage of it. Well, that's my experience with video games. Much more exciting than standing on the side of the road, I'll give them that. But the real question is, can they compete with witty cardboard signs?